Hi. So today we want to talk about this really interesting fine line between when you develop a little more self-love, acceptance, self-worth, healthy boundaries, your standards start going up as to this is how I deserve to be treated, this is how I want to be treated, this is the environment I want to be in, and this is what I deserve, I merit this, right? And so where is this fine line between raising your standards and also if you go on the other extreme where you set people up to fail, where it's like, you know what, I'm only going to accept if people treat me this way, da 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 da, and then everybody's constantly disappointing you, and you have this self-fulfilling pattern, prophecy, where people are disappointing and people aren't trustworthy, and you're setting up your partner to fail and be a failure and not be good enough, and so it becomes this negative thing. So where is this kind of fine line of as you're growing, as you're healing, getting higher and higher standards without becoming a sabotage pattern?
Right. Well, I think when we choose a partner, we unconsciously choose them because we're going to struggle in some specific ways, right? That we want to heal unbeknownst to us, maybe. So it is a very delicate dancing that we both do either when we're fighting and when we're cool and vibing and when we're healing, right? So on one hand, say one of the two has like a breakthrough in one area of your like mental health or self-esteem or whatever. And this person says, you know what, I don't want to fight in front of her children anymore. And the other person, because of trauma, because of patterns or beliefs, keeps doing it, right? I think the very first step in that scenario is self-grace. Because we, like in planet Earth, we all mirror each other, right? We've all been another person. We are all the other. So, in a partnership, when both partners used to fight, and then it's just one say, I think the other person needs to remember that they were also once fighting. So it's a matter of like being patient, and the more grace you grant yourself and patience and love to yourself, the better, like, I can't come up with the word in English. Like the more you give to the partnership.
Yeah, like empathy, kind of.
Right, and you're more calm and your energy is more soothing, and maybe you will start becoming a safer partner yourself, right? And so that becomes less triggering for your significant other. So I find that that's the very first step, you know, like the inner work, you know, like having some patience, having faith, having some relaxing breaths, because it comes down to that. Many of these things are like physiological movements, breath, crying, maybe screaming into a pillow, you know, and kind of like self-soothing and remembering that the other person has their journey.
Well, also when you have, especially when you have what they call trauma bonds or wound mates or anything like that, where both of you have difficult past upbringings, relationships, kind of like bumpy road to get here, you tend to carry, for lack of a better word, some shitty patterns, right? And some kind of like either abusive or borderline abusive or definitely disrespectful, maybe narcissistic. And so it's interesting because as you start healing, there's a moment where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever let someone treat me this way. Or I can't believe I ever treated someone this way.
Right.
And you have this moment where it's like, it's similar with addictions for some people, where it's like, I can't take another second of this. But at the same time, in that moment where you're like, I can't take another second of this, your partner may or may not be there or ahead of you or behind you. And also, you've been in that for a long time, and it's, okay, well, if you want to heal with your partner, which is very hard, especially if you have tricky, kind of bumpy stuff, okay, how do I bring us both through, or at least how do I get through, and then we'll see if my partner makes it or not. Because sometimes your partner's not going to make it through. Sometimes your partner is stuck in that. They still want to have these bad patterns, or not want, but they can't get out of it. And it's like, okay, well, I'm now doing a new chapter and you're not invited, right? Which happens in some couples. But in other ones, it's like, okay, I love you, you love me. I'm now healing this part of me. This part of me now is worth this, and you need to treat it with this amount of respect, whatever. Not that you didn't before, but now I'm demanding it, right? And this is how we have to go, and let's kind of adjust together. But it's like that thing that you were talking about, that compassionate empathy of like, okay, I may be totally done here of this behavior, but we have to work through together. We're in a team, right? So like I have to see how I get through so that I'm taking care of myself, and let's see if we can get through together, right?
Also, something that I've noticed is that when I see something about our dynamic and I'm angry about it, not even necessarily with you, but like life or myself, then the way that I try to set the boundary is coming from anger, right? Mm-hmm. And resentment and pain.
Hurt.
And so many times, sometimes I'm not even aware, I'm like malicious or hurtful about it. Like, you suck. You can't treat me this way.
Yeah, because you want. It's like getting someone back. It's like a vengeance element, of like you hurt me. I want you to feel pain also. Right. While I'm marking this boundary, fuck you. Right. But before we lose the other aspect of it, there's kind of that perfectionist element, right? Which is the other side, which is the perfectionist element, where it's like, okay, let's say I know that in our relationship, there was some issues with like reliability. You tell me things just to kind of please me early in our relationship that may not have been true, or may not have been things that you expected to fulfill, right? Commitments or promises. And let's say I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell you these things that I need every time because I know that you're going to fail. And then you're going to reaffirm the fact that, you're not reliable. I can't trust you. I can't trust the world. And so I set up this pattern on the other side of it where it's like, I'm like, oh, I need you to do this and I need you to do this. And I know you can't. So it's like, I'm setting up a failure for both of us. And so it's like, it's interesting because there's like a weird overlap, right? Where it's like, okay, how much of a dose of like, this is what we're worth now and we need to be more respectful, and how much is like, oh, let's set ourselves up to fail and feel really shitty about our partner and the fact that they're not ever good enough or we're not worthy of,
It's a really long and juicy, rich subject. I would love to be able to like have an hour of this conversation or like a podcast or something. But something that I would like to say before we wrap it up is that I find that there's so much drama in many relationships we build, right? Like we want to feel some pain, or like maybe this codependency where it's like, his jealousy reminds me of how much he wants me, or, like...
I feel loved.
Right, like let's say life or a relationship is like a steak, right? Or a really well-cooked veggie, or like a delicious ripe fruit. And many times we just want to put shit on it, like ketchup or like lime juice or like this sauce or like, and that might not be necessary, and like it might be in the way of leading like a really nice, grounded, authentic life. So it's actually a matter of seeing through all that sauce that we've put on our steak or veggie or fruit and be like, I can get rid of this, it's maybe a matter of a constant exercise on seeing what is, not what we want, not what we would have liked, what is in ourselves, in our significant other, accept it, like maybe verbalize it. Okay, he's impunctual. She has a hard time owning some things, like things that we don't like, no one likes that shit. But from there, from admitting it and seeing it, and maybe even like forgiving yourself and the other person for all those imperfections, you can actually start having some clarity getting like a direction or where you want to go with this person, with this attitude, with this behavior.
Or not, right?
Right.
And getting clarity on like, okay, this is, it's also like the deep, profound honesty, right? This is how this person is. Am I okay? There was this question that someone asked us once. Are you okay if this person never changes for the rest of your life? And it's such a good question because it makes you all of a sudden realize what you're expecting the person to change, right? But yeah, it's a good one. We should wrap.
Yeah.
So we'll continue with some of these ideas. I think we've got some other videos to work with here.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. It's really interesting. All right, thank you for watching, and remember, life is messy.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Bye.